Hey everybody, good morning. Welcome to Reaper Pro Tips with your host, Anne, and disembodied voice, Justin. Right, disembodied voice, Justin? You're up there, right? In the stratosphere? I think he's working. He might have run to the restroom. Who knows? Anyway, disembodied voice, Justin, is indeed here, I promise. And here we are, ready for another episode on the Spirit Beast. I like this model a lot, which is why we're doing a lot of episodes on it. Also, it has a whole bunch of different textures and things on it, so that is why we are doing it. We'll do the horns probably tomorrow.
What are you saying?
Yeah?
Oh, there you are. Yeah, I was losing my mind there. I thought I was talking and
I could not hear you.
So
yeah.
you couldn't hear me. Okay.
No.
All right. I was like, "Hello?
You
Hello?
were not
I'm in the Twilight Zone."
you were not the disembodied voice, Justin. You were the muted disembodied voice, Justin. Hey Yankee, hey Numbot, hey Mistim, hey Nomad Zeke and Crispy and Dwarfmine and Chibi Army and Sharky and Margaret and Andocrat and Twistedoma. Hello, hello, hello. Yes, imaginary Justin. Our Justin is real, yes. Exactly. So good deal. All right, so we're going to do another Spirit Beast episode today because the Spirit Beast has so much going on. That is just, there's so many opportunities. Why not paint the whole beast, right? So, hey, Stephen Phillip. So it's good to see you all. I hope you're having a good Tuesday morning. I have a sleepy dog and I have glasses and it's time to get into it, I think, because I do have brain cells today, but there is definitely a finite number. I don't know. I haven't been sleeping real great lately. I hate that. I'm trying to troubleshoot it, because sometimes it's exercise, sometimes it's diet, and it's like, and sometimes it's just a sleepy little dog who wakes up and runs in her sleep a little bit and kicks the closet door. Kiri totally runs in her sleep. I don't know if animals get older and then they kind of have that disconnect, like maybe they're more apt to move in their sleep as they get older, but Kiri is like totally into it. Like her hind legs kick and she's like running in her sleep, and it wakes me up when she kicks the closet door in the middle of the night because her blanket is right next to there. So it's kind of crazy. More Spirit Beast, indeed. Hey, Motor City Ray, it's good to see you. Herka, good to see you. And everybody, hey, Jacob Jansen, the one and only Embellizatious, Sweet, and Mathophile. Everybody is here. Great. Sweet. All right, well, let's remember to deactivate our intro, and then let's go to our minicam. You got distracted by baby sparrows. That's a pretty good distraction there, Kroniko. I would get distracted by baby sparrows, too. I'm always fascinated by animals in the neighborhood. Now that I don't have a yard anymore, it's in the park. And they have black squirrels here, which is awesome. Like, they didn't have black squirrels in Texas. So every once in a while on my walk, I'll see a black squirrel. Hello, Sentimental. All right. Everybody's good. Good. I'm going to be a chill Ann today. I was debating, actually, yesterday what part of the Spirit Beast's tail is. And I think this is meant to be kind of swoopy energy stuff down here, because it's feathers up here. And I was like, well, what am I going to do here? But yeah, so we've got some feathers. We've got wings to do today. Now, these wings are a little bit easier, I think, because, and I'll talk and remove mold lines as I go. Hey, Twistoma, yeah. Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, well, there's more Spirit Beast. Yesterday's Spirit Beast was doing these lovely, oh, by the way, you guys can see that I actually finished them for once. Let's see, can I get, nope, palette is confusing it. There we go. But I essentially did the lower legs, the darkening and lightening of and the hooves. So that's what I did yesterday. That's what you missed. And yeah, we're still working on all that. Did that on that side too. He's very pretty. It's a very pretty spirit beast. It's all good. So with these wings are a little bit simpler. We'll just leave him there in the background. Because they're folded, right? So you don't have as much space to cover. You still have all the integral parts of wings. So you have like the smaller, softer feathers here. And then they start to go out into the stronger feathers. The stiffest, shiniest feathers on a wing are the outer ones, because of course they're the ones that are really balancing against the air and giving direction along with the tail. On this sculpt, these feathers are sculpted extremely softly, almost like fur. So there's not like a lot of real finite detail for you to pick out. It's like, and you will have to probably do some brushwork. Like you can just do a wash, but even then I can see some parts that I might need to make sure I picked out some of the little feathers here. There's a lot of tiny feathers here. And I mean, the most basic, we're going to go over the different ways of painting wings today. And the most basic one is, of course, the base coat and wash, and then whatever you're going to do to highlight it, if you're even going to highlight it. But this area is going to intimidate a lot of people because it's just got a lot of tiny little feathers in it. And it's going to take some brush control to really, separate those out. So on that side, this is actually kind of a good practice model, but it does, I can see how that could be difficult for for somebody new. All right, so except it's part feather and part not. So I don't know, these are not feathers, Twisted Oma, to me. So I choose to think maybe it's like spirit energy, so I might have it fade off into the magenta spectrum or something. Hey, D. Clearman. Yay, thanks for the resub. D. Clearman with the hero resub. Subscribed for 13 months. All right. Lucky number 13, right? So, yeah. So, we'll see. Anyway, however I do these feathers is going to be the way I do these feathers. And the reason is color composition. So, when I put these wings on, and then I've got the tail, what I have here is an opportunity, because when you want to put like specific colors or textures on a model, sometimes it's helpful if you repeat them, and usually when you repeat them, you want to repeat them an odd number of times. So what this does actually is from above give us feathers, feathers, feathers. It gives us 3 points of feathers, and same from the side, feather, feather, feather. So you've got several points then where you can work feathers in to the composition of the model. So that's nice. So I will almost certainly do these feathers the same way as I do these feathers. I mean, you could choose to do your spirit beast in a non, with just all over the place with various stuff. It'll look like a patchwork model. If you want it to look like integral, like it is actually a thing, then I would definitely choose feather patterns or colors that are similar between the tail and the wings. You are free to do whatever you like, but if you want it to look like a coherent beast, it'll be easier if your feathers match, in other words. So, all right, let's see here. What was I going to talk about? Oh, yeah, wings. Oh, thanks, MG Photo. Awesome. Good morning, Chewy. Well, Mathophile, you can always choose to dry brush highlights. It'll give you fast, but it won't give you good. It'll probably be okay, but the problem with this is dry brushing this is this texture is so shallow. You're going to have to be very gentle with it to make it work. I mean, it is a quick way to do it. And actually, if you worked it up with layers of dry brushing and glazing, you could get it to look decent. Just beware of that scratchy texture that dry brushing can leave, because that could really go counter to your wings. You also don't have a lot of control when you're dry brushing, which can hurt you here because this is so shallowly sculpted. Yes? I'm here. I'm here. Are you here, Justin? Can everybody hear me? Did I blink out? Hold on.
Miss Ann?
Okay, so Justin can't hear me. Justin, you got issues on your end.
Oh, okay. I can't hear you in Discord anymore. It could be Discord, Miss Ann. But if they can still hear you, then you're good to go.
All right, hold on. Let me see here. I'm going to try to fix it, guys, so that Justin can hear us. So when I have a question for him, he can actually do stuff. Thank you, Motor City Ray. Hold on, I got to fix my stuff. It says my voice is connected. Gonna disconnect. Gonna reconnect. Can you hear me now, Justin?
Yes, I can.
Sweet! I just disconnected and reconnected. It was Discord. Blame Discord. Hashtag blame Discord. Right. Yay! Yes, I'm fine. Justin is challenged today. All right. So yeah, as I was saying, so all right, so the easy way, or so the tried and true when you have no idea what to do with wings way to paint wings is to base coat, wash, and dry brush them. But as I was saying, this texture is so very shallow that you're probably going to end up with globs. So be very careful. If you're very good at dry brushing, you can make this work. But you need to be very good. Like, believe it or not, there is a level of dry brushing that is extremely good at dry brushing. I knew a guy who painted his entire Lizardman army with dry brushing and washes, and you could not tell. Like, you had to get so close to those models to see the texture to find out that it was dry brushing. Like, you could not otherwise tell. He was a great painter. But it also, to make dry brushing work that way, it also slows you down. It's not as fast. So, yeah. So we'll do it a couple different ways. Let's see here. Hey, Planer, how's it going? All right, we're good. We're good. Excellent. Well, let's get some base coat on these wings, and then I will show you different ways that you can tackle these. Before you start your wings, you do want to choose what species of wings you're trying to do. So this morning I looked at parrots, and I looked at hawks, and I looked at various songbirds. Get on Google search, Google image search, and image search parrot wings, image search, blackbird wings, or whatever you're going to do, or falcon wings, hawk wings, eagle wings, whatever. Get some ideas, figure out what you're going to do, because they're all different. And even though this is a fantasy creature, just like I've been doing all along, I'm using real world references to paint it, because it's going to make it look more natural and more correct. And I don't want I like that. I like taking fantasy creatures and making them look like they could actually exist by using a bit of real world consistency and patterns. So that makes me happy. So that's why I do it that way. On wings, always start light, no matter what you do. In my mind, if you're going to use a wash or glazes, which are the first two ways to paint wings, always start with a light color. We'll just get our mint green set up here. Might even start a little lighter. Actually, Pendrake, things like stamps or rolling objects do not give you control. So yeah, you could do it, but for one thing, the problem with a rolling object is that they're either hard or soft, right? It's either a sponge or it's a roller of some sort. A roller of some sort is going to be frustrating because it's only going to hit the highest point that you roll it over. It's not going to get anything else. So because this is not a flat surface, a flat textured surface, it's not optimal for wings. It might be okay down here, but again, it's only just going to hit the edges. Problem with a soft item like a round sponge or something is that, or a soft rubber, is that, again, it's, this is really shallow. So anything soft might push paint down into the things. It's like, wings aren't hard, guys. And I'm about to show you, there's the easiest way to paint wings is with glazes. The absolute easiest way to paint them, in my opinion. You don't need any brush control, or you need hardly any brush control. All you need is paint consistency. But everybody wants to shortcut wings, and it's like, there really isn't a way to paint them well and shortcut them. So embrace your wings and figure out how to make them look awesome with a minimum amount of time. If I was going to paint these, I probably would use glazes with a bit of side brushing to bring out the edges on the top part. I might use wet blend for this first part. And it depends on the species that I'm painting, because something like a hawk or an eagle is going to usually have darker groupings of feathers toward the edge here, like chunks, kind of clumps of darker feathers, then lighter feathers and dark toward the edges. But something like a parrot is going to have warm colors here, usually warmer and lighter, and then it'll get cooler and darker as it goes toward the outside of the wing, depending on the color of the parrot. But like when you're looking at macaws that are green, you will notice the feathers shade outward toward a cooler blue as they get toward the outer feathers. And you do want to use a brush that you can kind of smush for this, because as you can see, I've got all sorts of fine texture, and I want to fill it in. So I want to have a brush I can abuse and kind of push into the cracks when I'm painting this base coat on this wing. Otherwise, the stuff isn't going to get in the cracks, and then your washes or your glazes aren't going to work as well. Crispy. Yeah, crispies, it's like you won't really. It's pretty much painting with light washes. Let me see here. Hey, Beowulf. Good. Just making sure I'm not... Hey, Rebecca. Just making sure that... Hey, Reaper John. Reaper John, you better sub. Let's see here. Reaper John is evil, Planer. You're so perceptive. Oh, MG photo, good catch. Yeah, but it's not going to hit all the high points, right? Because there's like, if you look at a wing, so it's going to miss any dips or crevices, like something flat. I mean, it's, I
By
don't
the way,
know.
Miss Anne,
You could try it. What? Uh-huh.
I think Discord messed up again,
Okay.
so don't worry about it. I'll just message you if I need to.
Yeah, I can try to fix it. I don't know what is up with Discord today. I'm back.
Yeah, it's just Discord. I don't think there's anything we can do about it. So
Well, yeah, I'd rather be able to, like, nab you. Oop, did I kill chat? Oh no, chat, I killed you. Ah, where
don't
is
feel
it? There it
chat.
is! Yay! Chat disappeared, but I got it back. Yay. Um, yeah, I mean, it's like I hate to use gimmicks for wings because seriously, I would consider like trying to do a roller. The problem with all of those methods is you don't have control over anything. So you're inevitably going to have to go in and do some touch-up work, at which point you may as well have painted the model anyway, in my opinion. Like, because inevitably if I use something like a roller or a stamp or a you know, a really rough dry brush or something, I'm going to see a whole bunch of mistakes, blorfs, fill in, stuff like that. And at the end, I'm going to be unhappy, and then I'll have to touch it up. And at that point, yeah, why did I bother taking the time to do the other method? So, Pendrake, I'm having problems, or Justin is having problems with Discord on his end, where he, periodically I cut out and he can't hear me. When I reconnect, he can hear me. You guys are having no problems, so it's not OBS. So yeah. The chat is dead, long live the chat. Pretty much. Pretty much. So yeah, I guess with wings I'm kind of like, I mean, and I hate wings as much as anybody. I hate to say that, but it's true. I'm gonna let that dry and base coat this one while we get and then we'll get into it. Then we're gonna get into it, but I want a couple of wings base coated so that I can show you guys stuff. But yeah, I mean, wings are something that most painters are kind of dislike or are uncomfortable with, both because the amount of work that goes into painting them really well, and the fact that often you just don't know what to do with the dang things. They're so big, they take up so much space, they've got so much detail on them. Oh my gosh, what am I going to do with this wing, right? So, I mean, it's a common malady to hate wings. You think they're beautiful, and then you're like, oh my gosh, how am I going to get through this without wanting to throw the mini against the wall? It's totally all the feels there. But I actually like feathery wings a little bit more than I like dragon wings or succubus wings, because at least they give you the feathers, and usually you can come up with some cool colors or patterns or something. Even if they are a little bit more work intensive on the highlighting edges and shading and stuff. We are almost there. Wing. Let's see here. Just checking. Yeah, Sephiroco, this is mint green. It is 9263. Mint green. And the great irony here, you guys, is that mint green is actually the only color in existence that I dislike. And here I have chosen it to paint a spirit beast. Just because it was the obvious highlight color for spectral or for phantom glow. And the reason that I dislike mint green and have since I was a little child is because all of my baby furniture was mint green. So if there was a single color on the face of the earth that I truly dislike, it is this one. Yeah, Herka. Like, the only reason I'm managing to deal with the mint green in this scenario is that I'm changing it, right? I'm actually putting shading and highlighting, and I'm interrupting it, so it ends up being very little of the model in the end. So, yeah. So, mint green, not my favorite color, but it is a beautiful color for highlighting any greenish blues. It's a great highlight for any light blue, actually, or even medium blue, like dragon blue. If you mix it with dragon blue, you can get some nice highlight colors. So it does make a great highlighting color. Awesome, Rebecca. Well, hopefully this will work. Yeah. Okay, so y'all know the base coat and wash, but let's see. Where's my... Let me get my stuff. I'm going to get... Like, glazing, painting with glazing is actually probably the fastest way, in my opinion. And really, you're using kind of a combination of real thin washes and glazes. You get all my colors laid out here, and then we can do some stuff. Like, once again, we're using Pathfinder Tianzia Jade 89518. And we're using some clear magenta. Yeah, it's not metallic or iridescent mint green. I can't make an iridescent mint green. I could make a metallic one pretty easily. If you mixed in some pearl white, you could make yourself a mint green metallic pretty easily. We used to have one in the Reaper line, in fact, I believe. Let's just try some of this. I think I want to get my blue mixed up here. Y'all remember my weird blue? My red plus green equals blue. I want that color now. Or I could just mix up a darker purple. That might be pretty. I think I want the blue. Well, Tistodoma, you should be walking out of here with a lot of knowledge every day that you watch my stream. So the only thing then is just to put it into practice. You can watch any number of streams and listen to any number of podcasts and watch videos, read PDFs, doesn't matter. You will not get better at painting unless you put paint on the mini. And if you try to do so while, referencing some of the techniques that you're learning. Try to consciously improve. You will, if you do not try to consciously improve, you will slowly get better at painting, but mostly what will get better is your brush control. And maybe your feel for the types of paint consistencies that you tend to use. Like, you'll get very good at base coating, or you'll get very good at washes. But if you never try the techniques that will get you better, then you're never going to get better at them. Even though when you first try layering, you're probably going to fail. At least then you can work from there and say, well, how did I fail? Then you can ask me a question. And I failed at layering, and I was doing this. And I can say, oh, there is an easy fix for that. That is why I am here, to help you guys. Yeah, Herka, sadly, Crystal Brush is dead. Last 2 years ago, I guess would have been the last one, because they pretty much canceled it. Like, but even before Adepticon was canceled, Crystal Brush was canceled this year and is now gone. They've handed that space over to Creaturecaster, I think, at the front of the hall. Golden Demons is back for Games Workshop if you paint Games Workshop. Otherwise, I'm not sure what would be considered the most prestigious painting competition anymore. Let's see here. There are other good competitions. I mean, obviously, I would say ReaperCon is a good competition. But it's also a very huge competition. So it's got definite levels of prestige to it. Some of the smaller conventions, like KublaCon out here in the Bay Area, do draw some Crystal Brush level painters. But because they're smaller, there's not quite as much prestige. Now that Golden Demons are back in North America, I suspect that will become a very prestigious competition, because I know a lot of top level painters who are very, very excited about it. Resin prints. Yeah, that seems to be very popular these days. Yeah, I don't know. The Creaturecaster competition seemed really good at Crystal Brush, but you have to paint Creaturecaster. Like, that's the problem, right? Is like a lot of these prestigious competitions now that Crystal Brush is gone are going to be you need to paint our minis in order to compete. Like the Privateer Press competition has often, their Grandmaster competition has been, pretty prestigious, but you have to paint a Privateer Press model, which not all people want to do. So, yeah, Mathophile, I was just mixing up some stuff. So this is actually kind of between a wash and a glaze, I guess. It's not quite as thick as a wash. Yeah, I guess it kind of is. Yeah, I guess I'd call this a wash. But I wanted to actually show you... I haven't been explaining what I'm doing because I'm still messing around. I might not even use that. But I think maybe what I want to do is put a really light wash over the whole wing and then paint with glazes. So we'll add depth to the whole wing and then we'll accentuate depth further. But I wanted to make sure this was really light. So I'm actually going to test it up here and see how light or dark it is. So pretty light so far. I think I need one more drop of water though. It's coming across a little gummy. This is the only problem I have with mediums, is sometimes when you're using mediums instead of water, or you're in place of a lot of the water, you can get kind of a gummy plasticky texture. I don't like that so much. So I just added a little bit of water. Now it's a lot closer to being a glaze. The difference between a wash and a glaze is going to be whether you can let it pool or not. That's the call. That's what it comes down to. With a glaze, you cannot let it pool. You're using it just to tint the entire surface. So we're not looking for that yet. We're actually looking for a really lightweight wash. We don't want to... The reason we're going lightweight is when you put a wash on a model, it discolors everything, right? So it'll make, this area go a lot darker. I want a wash that's going to only slightly change the surface. So I'm going to test it here on the edge to see if I like what it's doing and if it's working correctly. It needs to very, very slightly bring out this detail while not darkening the surface too much. The bigger GW minis in Age of Sigmar, there's some really nice ones. I'm David painted the Marathi from Dark Elves. That's a beautiful, she's a big old Naga thing. She's a really cool model. But yeah, I mean, they have a definite style, right? Just like Privateer Press has a definite style, Reaper's Dark Sword even has a style, but Reaper's almost the only manufacturer without a style at this point that lets our sculptors have a lot of freedom. Between model to model, because we don't have a game anymore that we're trying to support. All right, so I think this is going to work because I can see that it did darken in some of my texture, but it didn't darken it a lot. So I'm going to go for it. So first step is to put a really lightweight wash. If I had seen this dry in rings, or if it was not sticking in the cracks, I would know that I broke my my wash. If you tried to mix this, by the way, with only water, it will break. You got to use some matte medium or wash medium or brush on sealer to kind of support it, because look at how thin that is. Like, you can see how it's just water when you see how thin it is along the edge of the thing here. The magic formula that I like to use is usually about 4 drops of this and 2 drops of water, 1 drop of paint, and then just gotta see if you can thin it. Then thin it more with water as you go. Then I'm going to use a big brush. I want to cover the whole surface, but I don't want to leave a lot of it. So I do want enough pooling to go in the creases. Remember, it's going to dry lighter. Anytime you build a wash with paint, it is going to dry lighter than you think it will. It'll look darker wet than it actually will dry. So let's see here. So we are bringing out our stuff. I'm making your shopping list bigger. Oh no. Sorry, planner. Yeah, I've got the Elf Queen on the beetle. I have the Tree Man too. I really like it. That's too bad, Miss Imp. I like Tyranids too. I'm actually painting one for a commission right now. Here, I'll don't tell Reaper. Don't tell Reaper. There, that's the Tyranid I'm painting for a commission. I like Tyranids a lot. They were my first army. I like the bugs. The reason that they're probably not popular in competitions is just that you can't do a lot of freehand unless you're getting really, really small with the texture. You would have to do freehand on like the area around the Tyranid, like basing features or something. So you lose, because the model is so simple in a lot of ways, you lose a lot of opportunity for that. All right, so I am dabbing off. Yeah, I mean, if you're trying to go for that mathophile, like, I mean, if I wanted to go really bright with this, but the thing is, okay, always remember purpose, okay? Like, the purpose of a wash is not to shift color. So to go for a bright colored wash is kind of not the usual usage. the purpose of glazing is to intensify or shift color. So you would glaze with a bright color to bring up a color. But for wash, what you're trying to do is shade. So the reason I'm using a pretty intense color for my wash here is because this is a spirit animal. So it's glowing, right? I don't want any real dark or realistic shading necessarily. I want it to still look like it's kind of glowing. So that would be the only purpose of using a more intense wash like this. Yeah, I mean, Planer's right. If you want to use it, use it. Just be aware that using a brighter wash is going to give you less realistic shadows. And so work with that. Like Michael Proctor is great, and he's on later today, by the way. Michael Proctor is a great one for using very bright colors in his shadows. What he does is he layers various ones over the top of one another, and he ends up with a more realistic look, but it's a really colorful, intense, saturated look. So the answer is, define kind of your painting goals. And if you're not really advanced enough to really, even know what you want to do, play with it. I mean, if you want realism, though, bright wash is not the way to go. If you don't want realism, go for it. If you want to be artsy or crazy or you're painting something magical, go for it. Who cares? It's all your models. Oh, you like the Tyranid? Thanks, guys. Yeah, they wanted him painted more or less to the box art, but the funky thing, okay, so the thing I was mentioning about this, so when you've got a very simple or animal model where you can't do, you don't have a cloak to do freehand or anything, the only way to really show off your paint mastery is then to do tiny little, let's see if I can get this guy in focus. Do you see the tiny little lines on the plate edges? The tiny little highlights? Yeah, that. So really being tight with your detailing and showing off your paintwork in another way is the way to go if you're painting competition and you want to do that. So, all right, so here we go. We have a wash. It's a very light wash. Really, yeah, Mathophile, this is technically a bright color wash because I used a very saturated color for it. And now it's dry. I'm going to let it dry before I play with it. We're going to essentially, what we're doing is we're painting a wing like it's a watercolor, by the way. This is the easy way to paint wings, is you start with a really light color and then you just shade. You don't highlight unless you want to do little tiny spot highlights at the end. Thanks, Karinico. Yeah, I love Tyranids. I do love them. That's the traditional color scheme too. Mine used to be green and black, but I do like that color scheme a lot. So it's actually runic purple plus clear magenta. I want to say plus rosy skin. Yeah, with maybe some magenta and white for the skin for that Tyranid. And then the carapace is blue liner and then highlighted in like cyan blue with cyan blue plus white added. So that's your colors. Yeah, I did a polar bear on this stream, Herculurca. Way back, gosh, it would be, what is it, last year, Justin? I want to say the polar bear was last year? I did the dire bear as a polar bear. So I talk about painting white, and I talk about doing, and I paint pretty much the whole bear on the stream. Let's see here. Yeah, Fiery Phoenix Wings. And you know what, Pendrake? That would be one time you would use a saturated wash, a really bright wash. Because, again, just like with Spirit Beast, where I want it to still look like it's glowing, Phoenix, you also want it to look like it's glowing. So you wouldn't want to use dark or muted shadows at all. You'd want to use bright ones. So you could use, do a pale yellow, and then I would do an orange over the top of this, and then continue to add to it, as we're about to. Because it is almost dry. But you can see how even though it's a very lightweight wash, it still brought out some of the details in the wings. Like, you can see the feathers just a little bit. Oh, cream and royal purple, that would be great. Yippee-ox. If you're talking to me, this is a Reaper miniature, so it's shot in bones, which is our plastic. If you're talking to the other guy in chat, Herka, who is printing out models, then he can answer the question. Pesto Bismol Pink. Yeah. All right. So that's good. And does this work? You can see on the other side of here, on the neck, I also use this color to shade. And here it got a little bit eaten up, but I can go back and add it in. So I'm still being consistent with my colors. Now, I want a way to bring out all of these wings, wing sections. So I've got to identify them, like where the feathers split off from each other in groups. I think I can. And then I've got to add a shadow right around there. And again, we're going to use a real thin wash for that. Or a glaze. You could do either at this point. You just want a little bit of shadow color. I'm going to use my blue. I'm going to mix in just a little bit more green so it goes a little teal, like that. And I think I'm going to add a drop of brush on sealer. What you get when you add sealer instead of water is you are adding body to the paint so it doesn't break. If you just thin your paint a ton with just water, you'll get that horrible thing where it dries in rings, or it doesn't stick in the cracks, that sort of thing. By using sealer or wash medium or matte medium and water, you can get around that because you're essentially adding more base. So that way you can't really break the base. You can get a very thin color, very, very, very thin, and not have to worry that you're breaking the paint. So if you ever need a really, really light wash, but you need it to stay in the cracks, this is the way you do it. And it's adding more medium than water. Now that'll give it kind of a gummy texture, so you got to keep in mind that it might be harder to blend with. Sealer does not equal varnish per se. Varnish is a loaded term because it has a definite chemical attribution, Sefiroko. Sealer is just paint base. Like, it's a particular type of paint base. It usually is high acrylic for durability. Almost all sealers are in water-based sealers are going to be built this way. Varnishes are not built this way. It's usually a specific compound that a varnish uses. So when you use the word varnish, then it's like, well, no, not really the same. But for acrylic applications that are not spray, almost all sealers and matte mediums are simply going to be clear base. Like, you could add pigment to it and make a paint. But it's a high acrylic for durability. Some of them are less so, like Vallejo's is a little bit more flexible. They probably have a higher compound of other resin than acrylic in there. But it's usually a marriage between acrylic latex type of things. It's usually a little bit of both. Some for flexibility, some for durability, but that's what you're doing. All right, now I've mixed this blue and I'm going to test it. Where do I want to test it? So I'm going to test it here. I want to paint it into the cracks between these wing sections. I want to essentially see if it's dark enough to bring out the fact that this section of wing and this section of wing are separate. And this isn't necessarily like, if I wanted to go faster, I would add more blue. So let's do that. You want it fast. So put a wash over the whole thing. That's real lightweight. If you want a spirit beast anyway. Now, if I was working on a natural animal, I could have gone darker with the wash, but I wanted to have more control. Starting light with your wash gives you more control because that lets you layer up more color in your following. So there, I added more, and now I pretty much am just painting on where my divider lines are, because if you look at any wings, you will notice that the layers of overlapping wings do have a shadow, and that shadow is darker than the shadow between the wings. So what we do with our first wash is we set up really lightweight shadows between the wings, and now we're doing heavier shadows where the feathers are different. And we're doing it with a real lightweight wash because we don't want a dark line, because if you look at wings, it's pretty subtle. And then I've got one more, I think, right there. Let's see here. I need to really firm up that line though. So I might actually come in and line if I want darker shadows, but you can see that's starting to bring out everything. Sealer is like a save point. Well, no, because you can use sealer. You can use sealer as an end game, Sefiroko. I mean, the problem is that, okay, varnish is just varnish is another type of sealer. How about that? Sealer and varnish are words that are often used to say the same thing, but they're not the same thing chemically. So usually with varnish, you're dealing with like a specific compound that works in a specific way, and it's not paint. and sealer is paint, but it works as far as protection goes, is the same sort of thing. Usually with varnish, people are talking about spray varnishes, and that would be solvent based, not water based. The water based varnish that I know of is, and it's not really even a varnish, it was more like a lacquer. Like, there's all these different chemical designators for things. If by varnish you mean finishing spray, varnish is not the only way to, that's not necessarily the right word. Like, I would use sealer instead, for our community. Some communities might use varnish to mean finishing spray, but you could use sealer as a finishing spray. Our matte sealer is meant to be a finishing compound. So you are supposed to be able to put, a layer of it over to protect your mini at the end. But we also can use it, because it is what it is, we can also use it as a matte medium. Or as a paint medium to extend the paint and make it easier for us to do washes. I think I actually need some more green. My blue got a little bit dark. Uh-oh. Hearing lots of disconnects on Discord.
Oh, yeah, it's bad.
Yeah, I was saying it's lots of burbling in my ear. So now I'm going to put a little bit of green. I lost some green here. I don't like the blue just by itself. But, this isn't hard, what I'm doing here, I guess is the point here. I'm just pretty much bringing up some areas where I'm getting some darker detail. And if I want to, I can come up and do that also up higher here on the wing, where there's kind of a shadow. And actually this looks, it's a bit more bold in person. You guys, it's a little washed out on our monitor here. I wonder if I can make it, yeah, there we go. Let's put my palette in the way. It's because, once again, the wing is light. There we go. Now you guys can see it more. So that's actually, like, this, I'm not having to actually individually paint any feather at all. That's why this is easy. Yeah, that's Discord noises. So that's why I say this is like an easy way to paint wings and make them look good. It's just really starting light, and then you just leave your light where you want your highlights to be, and you paint everything else, where you want your shadows to be. And sometimes you change colors, like the green to blue that I'm doing. And if I want to, I can darken out these end feathers with a bit of a blue wash, because the feathers further away are going to be darker and cooler. And that's going to bring the wing feathers out better, see? Because I'm using a darker wash. The darker wash you use over the lighter base coat, the more your details are going to come out. But the more it's going to shift the color dark, right? So before you do it, make sure you want this color dark. Otherwise, if you wanted these wing feathers to be light, you're going to have to go back and paint them. There's just nothing for it. Yeah, I mean, it is methophile, but when the problem here is that when she says varnish, I don't know what she means. Is she talking chemically? Is she talking solvents? Is she talking, so that's the problem. Varnish, in woodworking, yes, varnish is usually what I hear. I very seldom hear varnish used as as the term to talk about sealer in this hobby. Although I bet in model railroading they still do. Here usually what I hear is sealer. So I guess my point here is I'm just trying to figure out what exactly we're talking about before I give an opinion on it, because it really does make a difference in what information I can give. Because, yeah. Essentially what it comes down to is paint sealers are usually just additional base formulations, and they can be used as mediums as well as finishing layers. They are formulated to be finishing layers, but you can use them in other ways. I'm afraid that because I did work with paint chemistry for a while, I'm very persnickety about usage, because I'm always like, the problem is that you don't know when the other person uses a term, you're not necessarily always sure what they mean. And so you don't want to say, well, blah, and then have them say, oh no, I meant blah. You want to make sure that you know what you're talking about. So excellent. Vallejo's is an actual varnish? Do they just call it a varnish methophile? Because I'll tell you, I've used their brush-on sealer, which they may call varnish. It is just like other acrylic sealers. It is not an actual... chemically, it's not a varnish. Arg! Now I need to look this up. I could be wrong about this. Maybe things have changed. That's the other thing, is that, you know, my knowledge could have changed. Maybe people are using... Maybe that's what it's called now. Maybe they're actually calling things varnish. I have no idea. 100% acrylic resin. That means it's just paint base. Acrylic paints are made with 100% acrylic resins. Actually, they're normally a mix, but you know, this is the thing. Is always remember there's a big difference between marketing to you guys and what the paint chemist always knows about a product, right? Anything that's on the label, you know, 100% acrylic varnish means that it's kind of like future floor wax. It's kind of like a high acrylic paint base. All of these things are very similar chemically. So, you know, this is where it gets confusing, right? Because they present something to you guys as acrylic varnish, and you guys take them at their word, and I'm like, well, it's not strictly like other varnishes. Like woodworking, it's not like a woodworking varnish, really, chemically at all. That's where I'm just kind of get a little frustrated. Not with you guys, but with the companies, right? And everybody's trying to market their stuff as a special snowflake. You know, everybody wants you to believe that their product is special and different. And really, when it comes down to it, the biggest difference between paint lines is what base you use. Sometimes the pigments vary a bit, depending on what approach you're using. I guess your pigments can vary, whether you're using industrial or refined artist pigments, and things like that. Actually, somebody just did ask about light fastness in my AMA comments, and I'll get to that in the next AMA. But the short answer is part of the reason to use industrial pigments instead of artist pigments is light fastness. There. So I just, you know, lined between those wings a little bit. Now you can see they're coming out. Yeah. All paint has resin in it. Almost all paint has acrylic resin in it. That's why they're acrylic paints. Paints just usually have different amounts or percentages of acrylic resin. But that plays right into what I said earlier about most sealers being 100% acrylic or close, right? Because of the durability. Acrylic is the hardest resin with the highest durability. Let's see. Don't need to prime bones. Yeah, you do not need to prime them, in my opinion. I didn't prime this model at all, and I painted right onto it. Your mileage may vary, I guess. Some people I know have harder times with it, but I wash them in a bit of dish soap and hot water and let them dry on a towel overnight, and I don't ever prime my bones. Mostly because I just don't trust. A lot of primers are kind of wonky with PVC, so for me, if it works not to prime, I'm just not going to prime. So I'm adding a little bit more blue here on the end. This is where you might want to go brighter. I don't know if I want to because it'll disrupt my color. But if I wanted to go bright with a bright wash like you asked about Methophile, you could do a bright wash over like these outer blue feathers if you wanted them to go brighter as well as darker. So that would be an example. I won't do that because I'm working with a specific color pattern for Spirit Beast. I don't want to throw another color in. What I might do, though, is to put some magenta over it. Let's try that. Oh, it's not a big deal, Hydromain. I mean, if you already have a tacky primer, then you're unfortunately, you're kind of screwed. That's the problem, right? There's very few primers that work on bones without activating, like being kind of reactive to bones. So that's why usually a lot of painters I know are going to say don't prime them because you have the chance that your primer's going to react. Yeah, Sharky in the tent. Sharky's got a good one, Hydromain, with the thinned liner paints. Our liners are a different formulation of base. They're a different sort of base. Let me see, where's my brown liner? Where is it? I just had it last night. Oh noes. Oh noes. I have temporarily dislocated it. There it is. That it? Yeah. So especially brown liner is a good base coat. These are a different formulation than many of our other paints. They use a completely different base with different properties. A lot of people say they stick better to the bare bones, and they can give you, essentially putting a wash of the liner over will outline all your details and also give you a nice seal. It's not something I tend to do, but I've heard good results. Yeah, we try grano cookies. I know that Ed has tried very hard to dial in the bones consistency so that it works the way it should with our paint. So I know that in the past, yeah, we've tried very hard to get a compound that. Yeah, you should prime metal minis or resin minis, Mathophile. Bones are the weirdo. And you should also prime styrene minis. I mean, pretty much anything except for Bones PVC, you should prime. And you should be cautious with other PVC brands. Like, there are other plastic minis out there that are like Bones, and so just be cautious. I'm gonna go crazy and try to put a wash of magenta over this because I kind of want to, just to see if I can saturate my color. Remember, this blue was made by mixing the green and the magenta. So, technically, if I put magenta over the top, I should get a more brilliant color. This is total color tricks with you guys. This is what I'm doing today, is color tricks. Color tricks with Anne. That's pretty. Yeah, I did a PDF on the Clear Bright planer. And a while, I want to say it was last year early, because it's something that a lot of people ask about. So if you are on my Patreon, which is patreon.com/paintingbig, I know I have a lot of patrons in chat here, go look at some of those earlier posts. Actually, just look around January of this year. If you look around January 1st, I posted, or it might have been December 31st, but I posted a PDF that had a list of all the videos and all of the PDFs that I did for the previous year. So that'll let you like dial in exactly what the title of the thing was, and then you can search for it and find it right away. Sound is great on Bones, actually, Francis. I believe that that Michael Proctor does Steinelres 2 colors, black and gray or black and white, when he primes his. Thanks for the link to my Patreon planer. Yeah, Simple Green is one of the few gentler paint strippers. Yeah, Twistoma, I'm with this too. I'm liking this. So now I'm going to actually do the same thing and add some magenta up into my shadows up here. Yeah, magenta and phthalo green are like magic together, pretty much. You get some weird effects that are really awesome. So yeah, we're painting this like we're painting a watercolor, right? We're leaving our lights in the areas we want highlights, and we're painting in our shadows, which normally I don't do on models, but on wings I feel that it works. You don't need fine brush control for this, is the nicest thing about this technique. You do not need fine brush control. And I'm taking my time here, but you could do this super quick too. I mean, I'm just mostly taking my time because I'm experimenting with different colors. So let's layer some magenta over this phthalo green, and you'll see that it starts to shift blue. And I just want to put my magenta in the darkest shadows, actually. Now I want to get a little bit up here. And with the texture, you don't need, the great thing about this too is because with texture on this texture surface, you don't even need to like blend. You just have to dab the paint on and leave a little bit of the darker, darker paint here and then even darker paint in the middle. So this is a very forgiving technique for wings. All you have to do is figure out how thin you want your paint, and you can create a pretty wing pattern. So let's do some more magenta up here. And then at the end, I'm going to side brush some lighter highlights on. So let me get over here. I'm going to put a little bit of shadow here. yeah, I'm taking my time with this because I'm messing with colors and experimenting, but usually I could do this super fast. This is just such a super fast technique. And very, very... It's nice for a couple of reasons if you're a new painter. Because one, it does teach you stuff about paint consistency. So you learn like thinning your paint, you learn how thin to make it to get the effect you want. You noticed I added more blue into this one to get it to just the right consistency. You learn a little bit about colors and shifting and adding more colors on the top maybe, or maybe you just like are building up layers of darker shadow. And you learn about washes, you know, which is also a fairly simple technique that a lot of people learn early. So it kind of broadens your wash experience. And you don't need a lot of brush control, and you can, you know, get as tight or as loose with it as you want, and you can still get a really nice result. Yeah, Silent Res I've never heard a bad thing about, Gren. Yeah, never heard a bad thing about Silent Res. It's good stuff. Yeah, I'm narrating. Yeah. Up, up, up. I just saw... Oh, thanks, Astrosquee. Thanks for joining my Patreon. Yay, good. Yeah, I want you to level up. Remember to be in the Discord too if you haven't joined the Discord, and if you need a Discord link, like if you didn't have Discord prior, just let me know, and I can get you that link. But do ask questions of me in the Discord. Part of being a member of my Patreon is that you do get instant access to me for questions, and I try to answer them as quickly as I can. Alrighty, let's see. Now let's catch up on everything. Snowdrift. Snowdrift, you probably... Isn't a metallic, Zip Zap? God, I can't remember. Snowdrift, I think if you mix 90-21 Snow Shadow with Pure White 90-39, you should get close. As long as Snowdrift isn't a metallic. I don't think it is. It's hard for me to remember sometimes with the holiday colors. Okay, yeah. So Snow Shadow, 90-21 plus Pure White 90-39. And I'm thinking it's pretty light, so I'm thinking you might want to do maybe 3 drops of white, 2 drops of Snow Shadow, maybe 4 to 2. Yeah. Adjust as necessary. Because Snow Shadow also makes a great shadow for Snowdrift White, as I recall. All right, so we have managed to start with a light color and layer down and make some very pretty wings for our Spirit Beast. Let me see how they look. I'm gonna have to paint his back to make them look really good. So let's see. I'm gonna raise this up and we'll take a look. Oh yeah, okay. Yeah, those are pretty. Those are pretty, but they need something. I think they need some highlight. Just a little tiny bit of highlight, and it won't even take us much brush control, I promise. So let's grab our palette. Let's lower our camera again so we can actually see things. And wing, and let's mix up a little bit of Pure White plus Mint Green. Yeah, and it's an unusual color scheme, right, too, Sephiroco? It's like not one I usually use. Like I said, it's the color I really don't use. But it is working out really pretty. And the fact that the green and the fact that you've got the option of mixing this nice dark blue between the green and the magenta gives you versatility. So essentially, I mean, I've used 4 colors on this model, technically. Like, you're painting this mini in only 4 colors, but look at all the variation that we're getting, right? So it doesn't look like we used only 4 colors to paint this mini by the time we're done with it. That's what I love about limited palette painting, is when you choose your colors for your limited palette, kind of choose them with an eye toward what can I mix with this. And sometimes you can get some intermediary colors on the gamut that are really useful. I could just use Pure White. No, it's probably going to be too bright. So let's do a 2 and 2 mix. Let's do that and that and just mix those up. And I don't want too much water in it. Just want a little. Don't want it like straight up. Just want a little fluid. All right, so about a 50-50 mix of mint and Pure White. It isn't cheap to get started with an airbrush. Yeah. I mean, you can sometimes find a Masters, I think it's Masters airbrush. You can sometimes find a combo pack from them that includes a compressor and a basic airbrush. That'll at least let you try it out and get started, and then you've got the compressor at the very least. And if you want to get an airbrush with a nicer needle or get a nicer needle for that airbrush, then you can do that. All right, so side brushing. Long, thin brush that's fairly firm. Very little paint on the brush. You can see how little I have. It's not pooling. It's coming to a nice tip. Side brushing is like dry brushing, but with control. So all you have to do is kind of put the side of your brush against the model. And because it is flexible, unlike a roller or some other implement, it will let you pick and choose where the paint goes. And since you're using the side of the brush with very little paint, the paint is not falling down into the cracks. So you keep your texture. So this is dry brushing for adults. It is a more controlled way to quote-unquote dry brush. I also am using much wetter paint, so I'm not wrecking my brush, because remember the other thing that dry brushing tends to do is wreck your brush a bit. Let me get this way up close and personal here. Hold on, let me adjust my camera, everybody. All right, so you can see my highlight coming up. Actually, I need a little bit of white palette behind me so you can really see it. There you go. So see where I'm bringing up this light color now here, because I wanted a little bit more. Let's see, where am I? There, that's perfect right there. Yeah, see, and that's just it. Like when you're doing hair, like when people are still dry brushing hair, side brushing is a fantastic technique for hair because it lets you just get the edges and strands. So here, if I load up my brush, and I just use the edge down here, I'm just hitting the edges of these feathers. And I don't really need brush control because the edges stick out anyway because that's how they were sculpted. I just need a light touch and very little paint on my brush. And this paint isn't quite full strength. It's got a little bit. See how it makes those feathers stand out now. It's got a little bit of water in it, but I would say it's only about a 4-to-1 paint to water. You want it to be thicker because you want it to stand out. Now, this does depend on the sculpt being okay, on there being good detail in the sculpt, right? Because if the sculpt is kind of muddy, then trying to do side brushing is going to just pick up that muddy detail that's in the sculpt. So it works best. It works really well, actually, since we were talking about Games Workshop models earlier. It works well on GW models because with the digital sculpted nature of those feathers on some of those bigger models, it can really pick out the individual edges crisply because they are such kind of like cartoony crisp sculpts that are over exaggerated. So that lets me just kind of pick up some detail here and there and bring up some highlights with very little effort. I'm just pretty much just rubbing the side of the brush over the mini. Bring it up. Now if I want to, I can certainly paint this if I'm like, oh, this wing is going great. I really want to bring up some details, then you can take it to the next level and you can actually just use your brush and highlight the feathers. One thing I tend not to do is, one second, don't do it on WizKids, got it. Mathophile, yeah. Yeah, anything, oh, thanks for the raid, Orcris Gaming. Thank you. Yeah, we're painting wings today. I'm painting wings for a very supernatural creature, which is why the wings are very fluorescent-y, glowy. We're painting the Spirit Beast from Reaper. So this is Julie Guthrie sculpt, and I'm doing it with some realistic animal patterns. And so I was teaching people kind of how to paint wings if you have no brush control. So if you're a beginner but you still want to get really pretty wings, this is you can go back and watch the VOD or the YouTube the YouTube of this episode, and I pretty much take you from base coat on down to the wing effect. So we are here on Pro Tips every weekday, except we won't be here for Memorial Day because I'm taking the day off to do like cookout things. Yay, cookout things. But yeah, so this is our dealio. We've been painting the Spirit Beast for a few days now. I showed people how to do leopard spots, and I showed them how I set up the fox face. And we're painting the other side with some, how to shade the fur, and I still need to do some highlights and how to paint white short fur, things like that. So we've been doing a lot since this model has so many different animal parts on it. It's a really useful model to show a lot of things. So we're going to do antlers eventually too. The antlers have no paint on them yet. But I wanted to get some wing stuff down. So there we go. Holly Monster, thank you for the sub. All right. Yeah. This is actually working with a bit of magic orcrist. If you ever have a color that's kind of like a jade green, like a greenish blue, and if you have clear magenta, it actually red plus green equals blue. This blue down here is actually just a mixture of red and green, and it works too if you're taking your clear magenta and you're just layering it over the green, because you can see how this looks blue, but if you get really close to it, you can kind of see the purple in it. So it's an optical illusion created by these two pigments. And I'm the one who made the Reaper paint lines. I created Reaper Master Series, Pathfinder, HD, and Bones paint lines. So I know the chemistry. So I was like, well, let's just show people the fun blue or green plus red equals blue trick. That was my deal for. Yeah, color theory sorcery. Exactly. That's what I do. That's what I do. It's the thing. Yeah, side brushing. Where is it, Pendrake? We're not side brushing because, okay, unless they have good detail. If you have good sculpted detail, you can do side brush. Here, let me do a quick lighter blue side brush on part of these blue feathers. We mix up some of our blue and come out to these guys here. So you want it kind of thick. You want it about 4:1, paint to water. You want to rinse off your brush and dry off your brush. Don't get any extra water on there. Load it up about maybe a third to half of the way. You want to wipe off any extra paint. Make sure that you've got it nice and tight on the brush. You don't want any of it flowing down into the crevices. Then you're just using the side of the brush to pick up sculpted detail. But if you have a model that does not have very crisply sculpted detail, see how that's just bringing up the edges? And I don't need brush control for it. I'm just running the side of my brush gently over it. Which is a nice thing for this technique when you're starting out. And this is really good on hair. It's really good on short fur. It's really good on feathers. But yeah, if you've got a model with muddier detail that doesn't have very crisp detail, then it's not as useful, right? Because this is your mileage may vary depending on how sharply the detail, that sculpted detail is. So you've got to kind of keep that in mind. And then of course, there is always the kind of, if you want to highlight the individual quills on each feather, you can. But if you look at birds, if you actually look at birds in pictures, you usually don't see these highlighted. Like the individual little strands of feathers don't really come out unless they're dark, right? Like hawks and eagles often have the black bars on their wings, or owls, and those will be at the tips of these wings. So if I wanted to, because we do have Besmara black in our arsenal, let me see if I can find it. All my stuff. I have so many different blacks and darks. There it is. I hear Justin doing Discord things again. Oh, it's the Magento Phthalo Green. Yeah, there's actually, Althai, I didn't use the phthalo. I used a color with a lot of phthalo in it. So Tianzia Jade, which is a very nice saturated Pathfinder color with slightly better coverage. It's a little bit more yellow, but it still works for this. I was being sneaky. I wanted to use a Pathfinder color because some of them are really pretty. So if we wanted to do, like, the only freehand I would have to do on this then would be if I was doing a hawk wing and I wanted some black patterns. Or eagle wing, or, any wing of a predator, they often have those bars on them. So I'm going to thin it down. I want it to not be thick. So this is Besmara black. I've been using Besmara on this model because it's a slightly gentler black. It thins down to transparency a little bit better than our regular black. So I didn't want it to be too strong in this model since I'm trying to keep everything very spirity. I didn't want a lot of it involved. But so the only freehand that we have to do if we want to these wings is we can put some black edges on them. So we can just kind of do every one of these outer wings with the black edge. And you can just paint around the edge. You don't have to. I'm kind of using a stroke that mimics the way the quills grow, but you don't have to. And often they'll just have like black edges, black tips, and they won't be very regular either if you look at pictures. I was looking at hawk wings earlier. But putting a dark edge like this also gets these individual feathers to stand out. And this is something you can do on models even with muddy wings. Even with wings where the sculpt isn't as good as you might want. So you can just do that black, and it really makes all of these individual feathers stand out well. And it looks good with this color fade we've got going on with the purplish color. This is almost iridescent at this point. If I actually load the magenta into the shadow here, it will look iridescent. Mint green would look disturbing on my lunch. You're right. Yeah. Yep, mint green. So this technically, okay, here's the dealio. There's five, but you could do this with only these 4. So here, here. Because mint green is really just the jade with white in it, with a very slight difference. Like this is technically a little bluer, this is technically a little yellow. So you could do this entire color scheme with 4 paints, and you could drop the black if you didn't want to do this freehand thing. So really, the 4 that we've been painting with up to now, except with the exception of a tiny touch of black at one point in some blue, is these 4. So mint green, 9263. Let me get in focus. There we go. 9263 magenta, Tianzi jade, and pure white. Do pick up the pretty jade color, guys. It is really beautiful. So yeah, I didn't really count the black because I only used it to mix into the blue for things like his nose, his eye, his ear shadow, things like that. But I'm now using it on the edges, so I guess I could add that in, and we could have a total. This is Besmara Black. It's another Pathfinder color, and it's 89546. So there we go. There we go. Sorry, my mint green is that's a 6-3. I should really Sharpie that in if I'm going to use it more. Yes, Althai, thank you. Mint green, it does indeed violate my unspoken rule to not name paint after food. I have better impulse control on this at some days than others, obviously. But this was mint green. Like, I had to mint green. From all of this burbling, I'm assuming that Justin is trying to get me to come back. So hold on here. All right, Justin. Was all that burbling you?
I can hear you. Honestly, what keeps happening is you'll talk, and then randomly it'll go digital, like it'll sound like.
Oh yeah, you've had that problem with me before.
I have, but not to this degree. This is 100% Discord, and not on either of our sides.
Weird.
This is 100% Discord.
I'm gonna put some more.
I was having this issue last night in my personal Discord, and now I understand why.
Yes. So I'm gonna put a little bit more magenta just up here, and this is gonna give us kind of a funky iridescent-y look. Oh, I got really cold here. Hold on, let me see. Probably because I blocked my warm light. 1 second, let me see if I can readjust. There we go. Now you can see it. So I put a little more magenta in there so now you can see that cool kind of color shift that I got going on. And I lost chat again. No, chat. Chat is dead. Wait. There you are. Yay! Yeah, jade green is also a loaded color name, though, Mathfile, because jade is so many different colors. Mint green, this is the color I think of as mint green. Spearmint. It's kind of that way. I'm going to actually go in and just freehand a little bit around the edges of these scales to bring them out and also to make them look brighter against those dark scales. Or just not scales, feathers. Feathers and scales are very similar. I mean, any dinosaur could tell you that. Alright, so we can get some more black on these guys. I need to add a little more water, though, because I've had some evaporation. I didn't put a lot of black in my palette. The less black I have in my palette, the faster it's going to evaporate. It's true of any paint in a well palette. That's why I use big puddles of paint, because they stay stable for longer. And if you are worried about wasting paint, you can always saran wrap it. It'll keep a few days that way, especially if you put little drops of water in the wells you're not using, or some of the wells you're not using. Yeah. So yeah, so that's looking kind of pretty. I kind of like this. All right, I'm going to keep edging these little feathers. Though we're almost done, so if you guys have any more questions, like shoot, because I'll probably wrap it in the next 5 to 10. I just want to continue to do a couple of edges here. kind of make the edge kind of fade out a little bit as it gets up higher on the wing. And of course you can, if you're going to put any bars, like, you know, like the black bars that typically go across the wing at the bottom, do make sure you are painting in line with the way that the wing feathering goes. So do keep that in mind. Paint in that direction along with the way the quills are. And let's see here. I'm going to get this one. There we go. All right, so then we're getting some nice stuff. Pigments that go into mini paints, phthalos, well, cadmiums don't go anywhere near ours trick spoon. I mean, there's so many different pigments. There's zillions. If you go and look them up, there are so many pigments, and they're discovering new ones every year. Right now, the emphasis is on discovering brilliant pigments with good coverage, and also it's on discovering non-toxic pigments, because a lot of paint companies, you'll notice if you go into an art store, are moving away from things like cadmium for good reason. You don't want to really, you know, you don't want, all the best paints are poison is the Paint the Musical. We came up with a couple of songs for it, and one is All the Best Pigments Are Poison. But the reason cadmium was used and things like lead white is because artists in those old times were looking for coverage. They didn't understand the implications, the health implications of some of those compounds. They're just like, oh, cadmium orange actually covers. Holy crap! Give me a bunch of this stuff, and I'll eat my lunch while I paint. Yeah, not so good. So like, yeah, All the Best Pigments Are Poison would be the best song ever. It would be a happy song, you know. It would be a very happy song with people dancing around in a paint factory, or in an art room. Yeah. So yeah, but yeah, I mean, trick spoon a lot of times these days. I referenced this a little bit earlier, but there's a difference between companies that make paint and whether they're using like artist pigments or what I call industrial pigments. Industrial pigments used by, you know, like house paint companies and all that are usually made to make mixing easier, and they're going for light fastness. So like that's one of the reasons that Reaper went that route. Somebody asked about light fastness. It's a main difference between the art pigments and the industrial pigments. Although even now, you know, everybody's trying to have their cake and eat it too. So remember, all this stuff is changing all the time as new discoveries are made. And it could be that a lot of the artist pigments that used to be fugitive are being improved now, and having better light fastness. So but that's definitely a quality that'll vary. But a lot of paint lines are no longer using, see there, look, yay. And if I wanted to, I could continue this. I don't know that I want the dark up more though. I kind of like that. Like those feathers are different. Although, and the other thing is that if I put a dark color right here on the tips of these feathers, they're not going to show up so well, right? Because what makes these feathers stand out against these is the light versus the dark. So I probably wouldn't extend any more dark pigment unless I was going to do like bars, but I don't know how that would look. So yeah, I'm liking the swing so far, actually. Liking it quite a bit. Yeah, it's the colors most likely, Gran, right? Yeah, you could use these colors for fairy wings and it would look great. Rediscovering a blue used in the Middle Ages. Oh, I don't know. Yeah, I mean, they're always trying to, it's always fun. That sort of thing always makes the news because it, you know, they kind of reverse engineer something that was used. A lot of people don't really know what, we know a lot about like dyes that were probably used, like say in the Viking Age, you know, like woad and madder and birch for yellow, and you know, we have some of that knowledge, but a lot of people don't know. They may not know where a lot of pigments come from. I actually have an awesome book that gives the history of various pigments. I actually have not read all of it, and I really should sit down and read it because it'd be great to do a PDF on something like that for the Patreon. But there's a lot of pigments we do know sources for, and then there's other stuff that, you know, especially with Middle Ages, like who was writing that stuff down? Unless it was monks in some monastery. And when you find, you know, that sort of goods always degenerates over time, so there we go. So I outlined those little wings a little bit more. Color shifting paint mathophile. It has limited uses. It really is good on bugs. It would be great on Tyranids, especially big ones. They usually look best through an airbrush. Also good on science fiction vehicles. I always kind of wanted to do a color shift Tau army. So stuff like that, and on big mecha, then it looks great. But there's definite tricks to, like, it doesn't necessarily look good on figures. I have some thoughts about how to make it work on figures, but I have not yet experimented with those. Yes, yes, yes. Thanks for the Patreon link, Planer. Definitely, if you are inclined, go over, pop in. Right now, I did a promotion earlier this year where if you sign up at $5, all of last year's $10 content is also open to you, and I decided to keep that up. So if you become a $5 patron, you can get last year's $10 videos as well. No, I haven't, Crispies. I pretty much was just playing around, showing you guys techniques. I mean, when I would probably make this lighter, just because that's usually what happens with birds. Is I might start with white and do a mixture of these two greens as the wash, and then bring it up much more pale. But mostly, I mean, I'm less into finishing and more into showing you guys the specific techniques to paint an area. So yeah, I have not done the underside of the wing. Mostly now I'm just trying to figure out like what I need to touch up with maybe a little more blue to bring out an area. That looks pretty good. That's pretty nice. I'm happy with that wing. That wing could go on this model. Let's put it on. Color shift looks best on gloss black. Yes, it is very limited. I have some ideas on it. I think it does look better on bigger models. Oh, yeah. Yeah, tons of content, Image of Betrayal. I've been doing this since December of 2018 is when I launched. And now it is my main income. So let me get this camera up so you guys can see. So yeah, my Patreon like keeps me afloat every month. And I'm just really, really thankful to all of you for pledging. Thank you. There we go. There we are. So yeah, so that wing is starting to look very nice on this beast. I am pretty happy with this. I still have to tune his back ridge to be a little bit more blue and magenta, but yeah, it's looking good. I'm pretty happy. That I would be very happy to have that on this model on both sides. So yeah, we'll stick with this. We'll do it. Okay.
Well, luckily, while I still have you here in Discord and you can hear me, right?
Yeah.
Awesome. I'll be getting this a raid together here pretty quick. In case we lose communication.
Okay, yeah. Go ahead. It's almost 11, so this is perfect. So who are we gonna raid?
Oh, we lost communication. It took. All I had to do was say it, and it happened.
Okay, I'm back. Talk fast. Who are we raiding?
We're gonna be raiding Zambies.
Okay, awesome. Yay, Zambies. All right, let me get back to... All right, yes. Goodbye, everybody. Thank you so much. Thank you to the people who signed up to my Patreon. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed the wing and the color sorcery. And I'll be back here tomorrow at same bad time, same bad channel, 11:30 a.m. Central. And remember, Michael Proctor's stream is on later today at 4 p.m. Central. Don't miss him. I don't know who his special guest is going to be today. Do you know, Justin?
It's going to be Gene.
Gene Van Horn. Oh, and Gene is always entertaining, totally, and educational too. So totally come and watch Michael and keep Michael and Gene company in the chat. All right, guys, enjoy your days, and I'll see you later. Thank you.
Thank you so much, guys. Sorry that we had Discord issues. I'm gonna have to, write a angry letter to him or something. Probably not, but thank you for tuning in anyway. You guys are awesome. Keep being awesome. Don't forget to use the new Reaper raid emote because we've got it. And hopefully we'll see you guys today at 4 p.m. Central for Proctor's Crow's Nest. See you guys.